I've grown up in this town my whole entire life. My parents split up when I was like 8, I think it was. I've always spent my whole entire life searching for attention from my dad. In high school, I got along with everybody. I was, I don't really feel like I ever tried to fit in. I just was me. If you liked me, you liked me. If you didn't, you didn't. The worst thing I ever done in high school was I drank. I went to, a couple of parties and drank. I wasn't a big partier in school. My addiction didn't really start until I hit my mid-20s. I got married when I was 18. I was pregnant with my first child. I had a good job. I worked for the state. And had my own home, my own car. And then me and him split up. And after we split up, it's pretty much downhill from that. I had poor pick when it comes to guys. I met my second child's dad at a factory, and he was on house arrest. That's the first time that I ever started experimenting drugs was with him. But I guess it was a problem then, but I never really thought that it was, I just thought I could quit. And then I met my daughter's dad, and that's when it all started. It got to where I couldn't keep a job. We bounced from house to house. We were together for 3 or 4 years before my daughter was born, and by the grace of God, I done pills the whole entire time that I was pregnant with her, and she turned out just fine. I got where I was stealing. I got to where it got where I would steal from my kids. I can remember pawning their little handheld games and stuff like that. We lived in Lawrenceburg. My husband got arrested for rape. And once that happened, that was it. I felt like that everything that I tried to hold together, everything that I worked for, my whole entire family was ruined. And I felt like that I had to give my 110% to try to keep my family together because my kids were around so many different guys because, like I said at the beginning, I searched for that empty hole that I had from my dad that I thought a man could feel, which is stupid. After he went to jail for rape, I still continued to stick around. That's when I started stealing because, I didn't want to go to work. There was just, I just felt like there was no purpose anymore for fighting, even though I had 3 kids that still needed their mother. I felt like that I had failed as a mom, as a wife, as all that. He sat in jail for a little while, and I ended up signing a signature bond to get him out. We moved to Monterey then because, everybody knew that he was in jail in Anderson County for rape, and I didn't want people, saying stuff to the kids. I thought I was super mom by moving them somewhere else. So we moved to Monterey, and when we moved to Monterey, I started working for a guy in Monterey, and he had money, and I cleaned for him, and I literally wiped him out. Everything I could get my hands on, I sold. I ended up pawning a ring for $4. Why $4? I don't know. But I ended up pawning a ring for $4. On Mother's Day, he told my mom that he needed to talk to us all. So we went over to his house, and he had questioned us about the ring, questioned me about the ring, and of course, the whole entire time, I denied it. I didn't do it. And to go back, when before my husband got out of jail on bond, I was living with Mama then because we had, of course, lost the house and everything else. And when my mom was gone, her and my stepdad were gone, I broke into their safe and stole over $3,000 from my own family. And regardless from what I stole, for what I've done to my kids or anything else, I can honestly say my mother never turned her back on me. After I started stealing from how I got in trouble, state cops showed up at the house. I told them where the ring was at, wanted it, where I wanted it, and how much, and all this. And I went to jail. I sat in jail for 30 days. I got the free get out of jail pass if I'd go to rehab, so I went to a halfway house in Louisville. When I was at this halfway house in Louisville, I was supposed to stay away from my husband. I wasn't supposed to be around him. That didn't happen. I snuck behind everybody's back, or I thought I was sneaking. I seen him and this and that. Then I graduated from this halfway house and come home. It was in December. And when I come home, I went home to my mom's. I didn't go to my husband. I went home to my mom's because I thought I was going to be the perfect parent that I was supposed to be and take care of my kids. That didn't last very long. Within a month, I was back with my husband. We were back at it hard with the pills and stuff. I ended up losing my kids, which at the time I was so mad. I thought that my mom and stepdad were just like these horrible people that didn't want me to have my kids and thought they could raise them better than I could and this and that. And today I can honestly say I look back and I'm so grateful that my mom stepped in and took my kids because I couldn't take care of them. I mean, they had a roof over their head, but half the time we didn't have electricity. I got food stamps. I sold them for drugs. I don't know. They're better off when they went with her, but of course I was mad and didn't want anything to do with my mom, and I went back to jail. When I went back to jail, I sat in there for a long time, and the day I was to get released, I had a court day that day. And when I went to court that day, the only people that were standing there in court was my mom and my stepdad. My husband wasn't there, his family wasn't there. And my mom looked at me and told me, if you'll let me come get you, I'll get you help, we'll get you taken care of, and, I'll keep the kids and all this. And I literally remember looking at her saying, okay, I'll call you when I get there. And when I got back to the jail and they released me, I called my husband instead. This was on May 9th. I was high before we got back to Anderson County. On May 22nd, God stepped in and done for me what I couldn't do for myself. My husband went to court and he's now sitting in prison doing 10 years over rape on our babysitter. When that happened, I sat in Lawrenceburg for a month without my kids, without anybody, trying to decide what I wanted to do with myself. I ended up calling my mom and telling her it was time for me to come home, that I was ready to be a mom. And in between all this, my daughter was 11, 12. She was having to go to counseling because of some stuff that had happened to her. And I remember her looking at me in counseling and telling me that she would never, ever trust me again. She never wanted to live with me again. I was angry about it, but every time I would get out of jail and promise them that, I was going to come home and be a mom, I ended up running right back to my husband. And it wasn't that I loved him more than I loved my kids. It was the fact I knew if I was with him, I was going to get high. And at the time, getting high was more important than my kids. In June, I come back home, and I was home probably 2 months, maybe 3 months. Everybody thought I was doing good when the whole entire time I was getting high. And I ended up having a warrant on me. And so my mom came and told me that I had a warrant because, when your brother's a cop, you can't get away with anything. He finds everything out. My mom ended up taking me to Carroll County Jail. And when I got there, it was so high. And, I had literally convinced myself that I was going to pass a drug test. It was going to be a 30-day sanction. And I could do this on, I could sleep 30 days away. It was going to be a vacation. And I was wrong. I ended up going to jail, and Daniel, the drug counselor, did an evaluation on me and told me that I could either do my 10 years in prison that I have over my head, or I could go to rehab. So I told him that I had to think about it. And so I went back to the cell and I called my mom and I told her the only way I'll go to rehab is if you promise you'll bring my kids to visit. Because she had always told me that as long as I was in jail or in prison, she wasn't going to bring the kids because she didn't want them to see their mom that way. So she told me that she would. So I remember going to Daniel and telling him, okay, I'll do the rehab if that's what I have to do to keep from doing 10 years in prison. And so I sat in jail for 30 days before I got to go to Brighton. And Mama come to pick me up, and we went to the Waffle House. And I remember getting to Brighton, and all these girls were like laughing and cutting up. And I remember looking at Mama, and I'm like, they're high. There's no way that you can be that happy and be sober. It's impossible. And I looked at her, and I'm like, will you take me back to Carrollton? And she's like, no. I'm like, will you at least buy me some cigarettes? She's like, no. I'm like, okay. So when I got to Brighton, there was people that I was locked up with that I had got close to. They were there. And then there was people that I grew up with, that I went to school with, that was there. And I can honestly say that the girls I met in Brighton are today my best friends. They literally loved me so I could love myself. I spent 11 months in Brighton. And I remember when I got there, I was like, I'm going to do my 182 days, like court's going to make me, and I'm out of here. There's no way I'm staying any longer. And I don't know, something just clicked when I was there. I knew that if I went back out, I was done. I wasn't going to get another chance. So while I was at Brighton, my family come and visited me every chance that they could. When I got to start going out, they were always there to pick me up. And when I went to jail, I had nothing. I didn't have a car, I didn't have a house, I didn't have anything. And while being at Brighton, my mom and stepdad brought me a car. And we put the miles on that car at Brighton. Like, we would put like 10 girls in this little bitty car that's as old as I am. We would pop in, go to meetings. I would help take girls, to court if they needed to go to court. I felt like I finally had a purpose, and I finally had real friends while I was in Brighton. Let's see. I stayed there, and I moved out of Brighton in the end of July. And I remember the whole time when it was time for me to come home, I kept making excuses. Like, my mom was like, well, why aren't you going to come home? And I'd make up excuses. And it wasn't that I didn't want to come home, because I did, because, I wanted to be with my kids, and I wanted to be with my family, but I knew I was safe while I was at Brighton. I knew that, that there was people there that I could talk to, and it scared me to death to come back to this town just because of the drugs and just the thought of what are people going to say? How are people going to treat me? And so finally in July, I moved out and I come back home. And once again, the people that I robbed, the people that I lied to, the people that I've done everything to, moved me into an empty house that they had. So I come out of Brighton. I started in Brighton with nothing. I come out of Brighton with a car and a house, my 3 kids, and my family, and real friends. And then while I was at home, it got weird. I was scared. Like, I was bored. I went and got my CDL permit and went on the road with my stepdad. That didn't last very long. But I got bored. And I was literally at the point that I didn't want to unpack my stuff because I wanted to go back to Brighton. Yeah, I had my family, I had my kids, but it wasn't the same. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like home, but it didn't feel like home. And then Shanna calls me, and she's like, I want to do this, and I want to start this. And I had prayed, and I was like, what is my purpose? I have 3 kids that live with my mom because I'm a drug addict and can't take care of them. I can't find a job because I'm a convicted felon. And I don't know, it was just like God put Shanna in my life right at the perfect time. I don't know, since I've been home from Brighton, I watched so many people that I love and care about relapse and go back out. But because of God and AA, they knew what to do. They knew how to come back. And I don't know, like today, I can literally say that me and my mom have not butted heads in like 14 months. I just had 14 months sober on the 20th of this month. To be able to like carry on a conversation with my mom and her say something and me be like, now, Mama, is that really how, you know? I don't know, it's just weird because it used to be like she could say anything to me and I was ticked off, I was mad, I was running out the door, slamming the door in her face. And like, I mean, my family has been so active in this. Like when I was in Brighton, my stepdad on Saturday nights would literally come to the house with the van and pick up like 11 or 12 girls. We go to a meeting together and then he'd take us out to pizza. My family has been so active in this whole entire journey with me and my recovery that, I don't know, it's just, I have a relationship with my mom today that I honestly don't think that I had with her before I started using.
I'm also a mother of a recovering addict with the grace of God, a lot of praying, Brighton, and her working the 12 steps that I can see in her has, you know, I can't say how proud I am because she's, you know, done what she has. And I'm not here to bash her. You know, that was my big fear of doing this. I told her, I said, you know, if you don't want to come in here, I totally understand. Because, you know, I have fear of hurting her feelings. I don't want to bash her. I'm not here to bash or talk ugly or hurt anybody's feeling that is an addict or is a recovering addict. You know, I've never had that problem, and I guess that was a big thing I never could understand because it was like, walk away from it. You know, it's easy. Walk away from it. You wasn't raised like that. I wasn't raised like that. Nobody else in our family acts like that. Just walk away from it. You know, it was real simple. For me, I thought it was, but it didn't seem to be that simple for her. But took a lot, you know, and I don't have to remind her now. I was constantly, you know, for me, I can look back and say 11 years, you know, when they separated, it started with those little no-dozers. You know, first rehab we paid to have her in at Charter Ridge, that's how she started it. She was saying, oh, there's a couple no-dos here, a couple no-dos there, and then I needed 5 or 6, then I needed a dozen a day, and just spiraled from there, you know. And in that 11 years, I had watched a total different person, from looks to personality to health to weight loss, and just, you know, medically, I feel like I could probably label all kinds of bipolar, schizo, wild, you know, up, down. You never knew what you were going to experience. You know, it was like you come in, you walked on ice, eggshells. What do you do? How's she going to act? And we were always afraid to ever say anything because she got these 3 beautiful children that sometimes kind of feel like was held over our heads. You know, it's like, oh, well. You say too much, you know, then you don't see them for a couple weeks. But I spent years and still worry about her. But I finally hit this point in life where it's like, okay, she's an adult. This is her choice. She's chose to do all this. If that's what she wants, she can deal with it. These 3 babies didn't choose this life. You know, they wasn't put here to be in that. So that became, I won't say a bigger concern because it was a concern. I still had a concern for her. You know, I can remember calling my sister and saying, I don't care anymore. I don't care. Let her do what she wants to do. I don't care. You know, and she'd say, oh, you don't mean that. And I'm like, oh, yes, I do. You don't know what I'm dealing with. You know, and honestly, no, yes, I did still care. That was not the right word to say, you know, at that time, but at that time, that's how I felt. But I felt like then my big concern came for the kids, you know, because you worry to death about where they stand. Like she said, I watched her move from house to house, county to county. She had a few moves I never even knew where the house was. Never had a chance to see it before she moved to the next one. Watched Heather go from several different schools, you know, watch her cry when she'd have to leave school because she had a new one. Watch them, like I said, live without electricity, you know, and you sit and you wonder and you worry, do they have food on the table? Are they eating? Because, you know, she told you what she did with her food stamps, you know. I had our oldest one come home one time and say, and tell us, you know, there was nothing to eat in the house, you know, but there's this little old lady about 2 doors down the street that will give us bologna and tomatoes out of her garden whenever we get hungry. You know, and it's like, you know, it just rips your heart out, you know, and you have that fear of, because you never knew who was going to live there. Whoever, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but whoever was their friend that come out of prison that week, there they was, you know. And yeah, I did a lot of background checks, you know, because, you hear, oh, you know who she's running with now? No, oh, he's up for rape. Doesn't have one rape charge against him. Well, that's all Mama had to hear, you know. So I went down to the courthouse, pulled all up, you know. I can try to confront her. Really, is this what you want? You know, you don't know. Because there was always an excuse. No matter what happened, good, bad, there was always an excuse and a reason for it. But I don't have to do the background checks now because she has a brother who is a cop. And that's a whole new relationship problem. Those two never fought a day in their life. And was close. And I won't say what they call him, you know, little baby of hers, but, you know, he could do the tough love with her where we couldn't, because I didn't want to ever worry about running her off. I was afraid, what if I said something she wasn't going to come back around? What if I upset her and we don't get to see the grandbabies again? Who's going to take care of them? Where are they going to be? Mike didn't care. Mike still don't care. He loves her enough that anybody she talks to, you know, he'll call and say, hey, you know, he'll either tell me or he'll tell her. You know, he'll call and grip her one and don't think twice to say, is this really what you need to be running with? You know, but, you know, he still loves her and he never stopped, and that was the only thing that gave him that ability to do that tough love when I couldn't. And some of the things that she did go through, back to the food thing, you know, you don't think kids see what's going on. At one time in Lawrenceburg, they had one guy that was living there, and her oldest daughter and stepdaughter, about 9, 10, came down one time and they're like, you know, this guy eats everything we have in our house. If there's food there, he eats it. And said, you know what we did the other night? I said, he got ready to eat. She said, we spit in his food. She said, we spit in the dish he was going to eat, that he ate, and we watched him eat it all. And of course, you know, naturally you laugh at that, and then you think, that's not the right thing. You know, then we have to go to that other mode and explain, you can't do that. Then you have a whole new fear, because now you're thinking, great, this is a big guy. He's already been in prison. We don't know what for. What's he going to do to these children when he finds out they spit in his food? You know, as they tell me, you think of everything. You worry of everything. You know what? When you're a mom, you do. And you never stop worrying. It don't matter how old they are, you never stop worrying. It's just, you know, a thing you do. It doesn't quit. But as far as the kids, seeing what they see, the oldest one, we've been about 2 years trying to make her understand you're not their mama. You don't have to mother them. You don't have to discipline them. We'll do that. You know, you lay back and you let us take care of it, you know. She used to collect straws, short straws. She knew that, or she felt in her heart, if she could get all Mama's short straws, and you know, whoever was there, if she could collect their straws, give them to me, put them in her book bag, take them to school, then bring them to my house, you know, call me out there, you know, we'd go out, and Stacey could be 5 feet away, and she'd be like, man, come here, you know, drag me in her room, just start whipping out the straws. Take these home because I found them. You know, in her eyes, you know, if she took them away from Mama, Mama was going to be clean. You know, 4-year-old in the back seat, we were driving down the road one time. We were going to the flea market. They all had $1 apiece, and he rolled his up. Showed the other kids how to roll it up and what to do with it. You know. And so I said, I'm not trying to bash her for that. And Stacey was a good mom. And like I said, when we got custody of the kids, and the whole time, no, I never wanted to take her kids from her. That wasn't my intention. And I did threaten her a lot, and I did tell her, I will take them, whatever I have to do to keep them safe. It wasn't that I wanted to take them away from her and take all her parents from her parenting rights, but because after we got them, we lost our grandparent rights. We'd do it all over again, wouldn't take anything for it. But you kind of lose those grandparent privilege when you want to spoil them and you want to give them that sugar and get them all wired up and send them home with mama and daddy, and you don't get to do that when they're there all the time. You experience that discipline, and you're the mean nana when you go out in a restaurant and they don't want to sit by nana, they want to sit by papa, because he's not going to do it either. He's the papa who loves them and still gets to do most of his pep-on, where I get to be the, sorry, you gotta do this, you gotta do homework, you gotta take a bath, you gotta do this. And to me, that was stolen from me as a grandparent, but wouldn't have it any other way. Wouldn't do it, and Stacey was a good mom then, and she is an awesome mom now. And it wasn't that she didn't know how to be a mom. The drugs kept her from being the mother she needs to be. And I knew that then, and she knows that now. But at the time, I guess when you have everybody else telling you, your mom just wants your kids, your mom wants this, it goes through your head and it makes you think, but then funerals, that was always a thing. We've been to several funerals from friends of our family and Stacey's friends from an addiction problem. And as a parent, your heart breaks when you stand there and you see what that parent is going through. And I don't want to sound selfish, but on the same note, all you can think of inside is, thank you, God, that that's not my baby this time. Because that's what goes through your head when you're standing there as a mama, looking over that casket at somebody else who lost a child to this. And it is a disease that I have learned more about. Like I said in the beginning, I felt like I was constantly trying to preach to Stacey because she was raised in a Christian family. I was raised in a Christian family. You just didn't do stuff like that. I didn't think you did. And if you did, you walked away from it. I had I could go out and have a good time here and there. I never was perfect. Don't claim to be. But it's like I done a little ripping and running, got out of my system. That wasn't for me. And I was able to walk away from it. It didn't get a hold of me to the point that I couldn't. The more meetings I go to, the more I'm around, the more I understand. Coming here, listening to Scott talk like he does and all the other people gives you a whole new perspective. And she went to Brighton, and it's like the girls there, it's like I said, we all took turns going to the different meetings with them, and it's like they became our girls. We wasn't just sending Stacey cards, we were sending them cards because they were ours. I've watched several of them already have relapses, and it breaks my heart as much as it does my own child. And when I pray for her, I pray for every one of them. I went down with my neck at the beginning of the year, and I got a card from all of them. Mama, 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 and when I signed mine, I signed it mama. And I still got that card. And there's many a times that I take that card and I pace the floor with it and I pray for each and every one of them. Because I know that But then, a few little walks through Stacey's time some more was we come to jail time. We got to experience the jail. That's one thing when you get that phone call that says, Mom, I've got a flat tire or whatever, but when you get that phone call that I'm in jail, your heart stops, but then the sad part is, after so many times in jail, that becomes my safe place. When Stacey was in jail, that was some of the only nights that I could lay my head down and rest, because I knew where my baby was, that even though I hear stories that they still get stuff there, my thought was, she's not going to overdose. She might get a little bit, but she's not gonna overdose there. She's safe, she's got a bed, she's got electricity, she's got food. You know, it might not be the honey buns and the Mountain Dews that she wants, you know, and it may not be the ramen noodles that she can buy on the side, but she had food and I knew it, you know. And then there comes the first time that I got to go visit her, you know. I walked in and out of that little room about 3 times before I finally got the courage up to sit in that seat before she got there. And when she did, I don't really know how much conversation we really had because it was more, you know, talk through a piece of glass on a telephone and all you can do is cry. That's all I can do. About the only thing that she cried the whole time too, about the only thing I got out that I could actually say that I remember in our whole conversation was, I've got papers right here where your first child's dad is going to file custody and take your child away from you. You know, that's about all I remember out of that first visit. And I always told Stacey and Mike, you know, you wasn't raised to do things that's going to put you in jail. So, you know, when they give you that quarter, if it ever happens to you, don't waste your quarter calling me because I didn't raise you to go there. And I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna use my money to get you out. And we didn't. You know, I did make one time that I signed a surety note, and it wasn't what I thought I was signing. She was in jail on Tuesday, and she had to be back to court on Friday. And they said, the judge said, "Oh, this is just you saying that you'll make sure she's back." And I was like, "Tuesday, Friday? She ain't out of jail yet." "Well, sure, I can have her back." So I signed it. And then I get home and my son calls to say, "Do you know what that is that you just signed? You know, $9,000 is what you're going to pay if she don't show up for court." I said, "Yeah, but she's still in jail. Court's not due. It's Friday." He's like, "No, Mom, it's until this whole case is over." So that kind of freaked me out. You know, and he's like, "You went back on your word. Whatever happened to that, don't spend your quarter, call me." So I had to go see her PO, I guess was what she was, and she explained it to me, and she said, "The best thing you can do is, whatever happens, turn her in." And I told her the day when I signed that and picked her up, I said, "You know, you do know I will be the first to turn you in. Whatever you do, you mess up, you're back on drugs, whatever, I will be the first one to turn you in." I said, "And you know, if I have to bring a gun, put you in the car, that's what we'll do." You know. We just laughed it off, and she's like, "I can't believe you would think that." Well, first court date got there, it was 9 o'clock. 9:05, there was no Stacey. And, you know, all I could see was $9,000. I'm going to come up with $9,000 that I do not have, you know. So, needless to say, we had a big lecture that day, and, you know, there was an excuse, though, that she was late, so. But throughout several different jail visits, you know, every time she'd get out, something go wrong. I don't like to look at it as a bad mother, but I felt bad doing it, but I'd be the first one to pick that phone up, you know, to whoever I had to call, whatever lawyer, whatever office, to say, "Here's where she is, here's what she's doing." You know, it was hard to do, and we didn't do it. So I said Mike done it more because he didn't have a dog in that fight. But once we got temporary custody of the kids, it was almost having to do it. Had cops show up at my door many times. You know, we're looking for Stacey. "Oh, wait a minute, let me get your phone number." You know, I'd give her a phone number. I'd tell them where she worked, tell them her hours. Here's where she's at now. You know, did I get the kids before they go? And Stacey was always good about giving me the kids. Anytime I wanted them, as long as, you know, everything was smooth and we didn't say nothing, she let us have them. And like I said, there were several things that happened throughout this whole addiction that don't get talked about in public. Some things do, some things don't. Some things is meant to stay at home. But throughout all of this, you know, like I said, the jail time seemed to be the best time for me. But we had, you know, when they're born, you don't get that. When your new baby's born, you get all those books. You find all those books, see where you want them. You know, diaper rash, here you go. You know, colic, here you go. Whatever you have to do, here you go. But you know, there's not a book out there that tells you what to do when your baby goes down that wrong path and starts on the drugs. I tried everything. We paid cash for a couple different rehabs. You know, and in my own way, I enabled her, not intentionally, but things we did, you know, when we look back on it. You know, had a time where we came out of the house, Bill did. He always parks in the garage. He says it's a God thing, and it had to be, because we park in our garage. That day, he didn't park in the garage, he parked on the street. He came out that night, heard loud blaring music, and she took a handful of bills and came to my house to sit in my driveway with her. And, you know, Bill panicked, we all, you know, everybody did, and she had thrown up enough that it came out. He took her home to her husband, and of course, before the night was up, she had the gun. And him being the supportive husband that he was, he just, you know, go ahead, what are you waiting on? You know, some of the kids was there, two, his oldest and her oldest, and I think I had the two youngest ones, but at that time, I think I had more anger and bitterness toward her. I didn't hate her, she was my child, and I loved her. But I don't think I've ever had so much bitterness in my heart, because to me, all I could think of was how selfish of you to do that to your children, to your family. You know, at that time, she was doing some counseling with our minister's wife, and, you know, we thought she was still doing counseling, but of course, like everything else, there was something that sidetracked that and it quit. And so she had an appointment, and I finally I went to our minister's wife, and I said, okay, Stacey's not here, right? And I said, I think I need your appointment, you know, her appointment. And I just kind of spilled my guts, you know, and she looked at me and she said, you know, do you not trust God to take care of her? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, do you not have faith in him doing it? It's like, yeah. And she's like, why can you not leave her alone and let it go? Give her to him and let him take care of her. He can't take care of her because you just keep stepping in. You keep trying to take care of everything. You just keep trying to heal it. You keep trying to change her. You can't change her. And believe me, if there was anything I could have done, if money could have bought it, if I could have sold everything I had, you know, I give everything that I had almost, whether I wanted to or not, you know. And it was, when I look back now, it wasn't just the cash that she took, you know. It was having to go to her oldest child who knew that it was her, you know, knew that's where her money went, that had her name on it when her mom took. You know, she knew when she, you know, when she said, you know, Papa, Mama paid for gas with a lot of those $2 bills like you used to have in your safe. You know, my dad had coins that can't be replaced. One of them was a coin from my grandfather that my mother wore around her neck as a baby. And as she said in those days, cut her teeth on it, you know. That you can't replace. You know, the money, you know, when you look back now, that's nothing. Not a thing. But, you know, it has taught me that a whole new realm of prayer. Because, you know, like I said, you get those little books when they're babies that tells you how to take care of everything. But when they go through this, you don't get a book that's handed to you that says, okay, my child likes to snort pills. My child likes to do this. My child likes to shoot up, whatever. You know, my book, my instruction book became my Bible. I read my Bible, I prayed. It gave me a whole new meaning of what it was to get on my knees and to pray just without stopping. Just be persistent, and you know, that's all I could do. That's all I knew to do. And that was the only thing that could get me through it. You know, I can think of what, you know, Sharon would say that, hey, you know, do you not have the faith that he can do it? You know, okay, let's go to Hebrew 11 and just, I can read it, I read it and read it and read it. Whenever I get that doubt in my mind, you know, it's just every one of them. Moses, Noah, how many people's going to build an ark and take all these animals in when there's no rain, nowhere in sight? He had faith. He had faith in what God told him. And then, you know, then I go to Matthew and I read the miracles that God's done. I learned the difference in miracles and healing. You know, I wanted a miracle for my child. I wanted to be able to snap that finger, and I wanted her healed. I wanted it cured. I wanted it gone. I wanted to be able to, when I said that prayer, hey, I want her healed now. You know, don't take your time. You know, and that's something Sharon asked me. She said, why do you not, you know, let him take care of it? I said, because don't do it fast enough to suit mama. You know, nothing's done fast enough to suit mama. But I also had to learn through that progress, it's not in mama's timing. It's in God's timing. And it's in that addict's timing when they know they are ready. They got a long road to walk that they have no clue what they're walking, and we have no clue what they're walking until they do it. And you know, and like I said, until I come and hear what other people say and learn more about it, you know, unless we're all going to get together, whether it's parents, addicts, recovering addicts, everybody, and pull together and encourage each other and pray, you know, there is none. You know, I knew what my instruction book was. I knew who my higher power was. It was God. And that was all that was going to get me through it, and that's all that got me through it. You know, I don't quit praying for her. I don't, you know, when I was down with my neck, she laughs. I, you know, seen the show on TV, Steve Sack, you know, a rock singer in Creed, read his book while I sat there, and it was like, wow. You know, it helped me to understand more, and I caught myself wanting to pray for him. You know, it's like, pray for anybody, pray for everybody that's got it. It's like she said, I want to save everybody. I don't want nobody to experience what we've experienced or what she's had to experience, you know. And she's thanked me for reading that book. You know, she says she feels like it made me understand, but in the past, I didn't want to. I really didn't want to know about it, didn't feel like I needed to learn about it because I knew what drugs was. And in my opinion, it was a choice. You know, I worked in disability. I watched them come through, you know, and I had bitterness from way back then before, when she was a child. You know, before any of that took place, because my dad was medically, had problems and he couldn't get help. And everybody else could. If they had an addiction, they could get help. And so I started off on wrong foot. You know, I wasn't a very sympathetic person, you know, for that, because all I could think of was, it's choice. You know, it's choice. My head, that was my heart and how I felt at that time. Of course, I feel like I made big progress there, and I have a whole different outlook on it, and I realize it's a disease, and I have all these girls and Scott, the recovering addicts, to listen to them and understand what it is, you know. But I've also learned too, you know, praying makes a big difference. You know, there was one of the sayings that I had to write down we had a guy come this weekend that taught at our church, and he said, when we pray, things happen that don't ordinarily happen. You know, and he made, when he said that, he said, I'll ask you a question, I want you to pause for 5 seconds before you even answer. Would you agree that when we pray, things happen that wouldn't ordinarily happen? You know, and it was, of course, anything. And then you flip that around and think, what's not happening because we're not? What's not happening because we're not all coming together to fight this addiction? You know, it's out there. It's not picky. It don't care who. It doesn't discriminate. Old, young, rich, poor, you know, mother, kids. It's there. But, well, I guess that's pretty much how it is. I'm just going to nip it like that before I say something I shouldn't, right? But do watch a lot of Joyce Myers, you know, and she's, I think it was another God thing after, like I told Stacey, I was kind of afraid to do this because I don't want it to come off as bashing anybody, you know. But all week, every day, she's taught on habits, bad habits, you know. Good habits can be replaced with bad habits. Make that good habit a God habit that kicks in, you know. And I understand when an addict is at that deepest, my preaching, you know, wasn't what Stacey needed. You know, I tried it, you know, and in my heart, and that's what I felt I needed to do. And I guess the praying was probably more needed than me preaching at her, you know. But I don't regret preaching at her at all, you know. I still preach at her. And, you know, she may mess up tomorrow, but you know what? I will be there tomorrow when she does. You know, it doesn't change. You know, it doesn't change how I feel about her. It doesn't change who she is. It doesn't change who I am. But one of the things that I couldn't help but think of, some of the fights that you go through and that Joyce had quoted, one of them was, if you have goals and procrastination, you have nothing. But if you have goals and you take action, you'll have anything you want. And I'm gonna close on that.
Okay, stop. It's due, like, as far as like awareness thing, you talked on it a little bit, but talk on it a little bit more on how, like, signs and stuff of, like, you were talking about how you had to walk on eggshells around me and this and that. But like for parents that might not, like for parents that are think that their kids are on drugs or might, you know, have that assumption or whatever, say, like, do on, like, the awareness on what you've seen in me then compared to now.
The biggest thing we watched for was the weight loss. You know, because you could always, and Stacey never was big, but you could always tell when she would lose weight, you know, when she would get heavy in there, she would drop down to just skin and bones, you know. Of course, it's like I said, we watched her appearance change, you know, but some of that kind of stuff, it seems like it's a lot, you're into it longer before you realize what to look for. You know, hers was mood swings. Oh, what mood swings you'd have, you know, bouncing happy, or wanting to sleep, or aggravated, and moody. Like she said, she could rip my head off real quick, you know, and drop with a hat. But I kind of agree with Scott. You know, he made a statement one time. You know, they're in your house. It's your business. You make it your business to take care of it. Because if you don't, who is? Stacey's. Well, she's not in my house, but she is in my house. It's one across the street. But I still have to watch myself to not want to make it her life my business. You know, because there's little things she does at 30, and you know, like she said, we still kind of butt heads, but we can butt heads now. We can butt heads, and I can say, "Really, Stacey?" Is, you know, she called this other night. We were out with Bill, take a little straw. And she called to say, "I'm going so-and-so down to Lockport." Well, I didn't get the phone hung up to say, "Lockport? She's going to Lockport." Well, Bill was on the other phone. "Stacey, honey." And he gets out of the truck, and I'm like, "Where's he?" He's behind the truck. "Do you really think Lockport's where you need to be?" You know, and she's like, "Bill, it's okay." You know, "All right, if you say so." But you never get to stop being a parent. Don't ever, ever stop. You know, you never stop loving, never stop caring. I don't care how old they are. But, close.
Stacey, why don't you get back up there with her and take some questions? Because I know I have a list.
Yeah, of course.
So anybody that has questions for them or comments you want to make?
Get it, Shannon.
You got one first? Okay. Well, I'd like to know, what are some of the struggles you have now? Because there are several people in this room that are in the same position as you guys, as far as, you know, I've just come home and now I'm trying to build my mom's trust. I'm trying to build, you know, everybody's trust. You have to earn that back, and you know that. So what kind of, you know, advice would you give? I mean, you're learning still. But what kind of advice would you give on, you know?
Like they still don't trust me 100%. I mean, there's times that, I mean, it didn't take us overnight to destroy that trust. I'm not gonna fix it overnight. But I know that as long as, you know, I don't go back in those old habits of like telling her I'm going one place and go another. And, I mean, for some reason in Wayne County, she figures out everything. I mean, like, we had a discussion. We were talking the other morning and, like, we're having this serious conversation, and she's like, and by the way, I know about that 2-hour drive you drove to see so-and-so while you were in rehab. And I'm like, how do you know about that? But, like, I can be honest with her today.
It's quite noticeable.
Yeah, the nugget gave me away, but anyway. But I mean, like, regardless to what I'm doing, I know what I have to do, and I'm just like honest with her about it. Like, I was never honest with her before. I always would, like she said, make up excuses or tell her I was going to do one thing and do another. But now I know who I am, and before I didn't know who I was, and I felt like that I had to tell her what she wanted to hear in order for her to accept me or love me, and now I know that's not true. You know, she's proved to me that regardless to who I am, what I do, or what I've done, she's going to love me regardless. And I know that she only wants the best for me. And so, I mean, like, sorry for bringing this up. Like the first time I wanted to take my kids to my dad's by myself, she called my dad and asked my dad if that's really where I was going. And I'm not gonna lie, I was mad at first. I'm like, I am 32 years old, those are my kids. How is she gonna call my dad and ask if that's really where I'm going? But I see why she done it. I mean, I've had my kids in such bad situations and, you know, things that happened to them that, you know, I can laugh about it now. It's, you know, I just know that as long as I'm honest with her, it's not going to heal overnight, but as long as I'm honest and upfront with her, that only thing that can heal it is time and trust. I mean, and me proving myself to her.
And you text me where she lives, and where I know you know, it becomes part of life, you know, and it's like I said, that trust has got to be earned back. And, you know, like I said, it didn't happen overnight. I learned in this process the difference in a miracle and healing. You know, in a miracle, it's instant. It's done. This is a healing process. It takes time. It takes steps. You know, sometimes there's a lot there that takes God a little longer to get untangled. We tangle up a lot of things. Sometimes it's a bigger mess than others. It's just a process, you know. And the trust, yes, like I said, it got to the point in our house, Bill is the type where every day, first thing is, hey, how was your day? What'd you do today? And he can be say, I'm sorry, I can't talk to Stacey. You know, I feel like I cannot even have a conversation because no matter what you done, you were butting in the business. You know, all you had to do is say, you know, how was your day today? I mean, you couldn't ask where she ate. And I didn't like to because, you know, I get home and say, oh, I see Stacey today. She was at McDonald's. I was like, really? I was like, yeah. She comes home. Oh, well, I went to Subway today. I'm like, really? Yeah. Yeah. Didn't have no money to go anywhere. So I bought my lunch at Subway. It's like, okay. Yeah, you don't ask. You don't ask. You get to that point.
What's the most important thing to do that, like your mom was right there in the middle of it, but the people on the outer circle that aren't in the home, what's the most important thing that we can do to help an addict or a recovering addict?
God.
Yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah, God. I mean, so many people are quick to judge a person and give up. You can't do that. I mean, like my cousins and stuff, I can remember, and I still fight with it, but I mean, I couldn't even stand to be around them, and still I can only tolerate so much of them now being sober, but it was, I don't know, you have to give them their space, yes, because, like she said, if you butt in, you know, we're automatically quick, or I was automatically quick to jump and, you know, think that you're being nosy and this and that. Money-wise, don't enable them with money. I can honestly say that is something that my family never did. Like, I would use the excuse I needed deodorant or I needed toilet paper and this and that. And instead of my mom literally handing me $2 or $3, she would literally go buy the stuff and bring it to me. Because, I mean, regardless how much money you give me, I'm going to find a way to make more money off that and I'm gonna find a way to get out. I mean, that's one thing they never done. I mean, yeah, the whole, she says she felt like they enabled me in certain ways, but like money-wise, financially, and stuff, like that's one thing they never did. And I mean, I'm grateful that they didn't do that. But just like my answer to everything anymore is just pray and don't give up. People give up on people too easy. If somebody would have gave up on me the way that people give up on people these days, I probably wouldn't be standing here. I mean, that's one thing that I thank God for every day is that nobody ever gave up. I mean, like my brother, he wouldn't even talk to me or whatever, but like she said, regardless, he still loved me, but he was a prick, but he still loved me.
Well, we said, there's something about Stacey, you don't go to jail and tell them who your brother is, because I probably put them there.
I mean, that's embarrassing.
And yeah, sometimes I think that was some of for him. It's like I said, a lot of times when she was in jail, the oldest one always knew what was going on, because she was in the middle of a lot of it. The little one, we kind of sheltered them more. Well, mom's not here right now, or, we never said, well, your mama's, whatever. It was just, mom's busy, mama had to go somewhere, she called it vacation, to them, well, mama, back when I was on vacation, But at one of those times in jail, the youngest one's dad took them. And I didn't, I know everybody's different, but I just didn't feel it was right because there was always the topic. They always want to talk about it. I always want to talk about whoever, at school. It was the hot topic in the classroom around the table. Well, guess what? Mama's in jail. And I just didn't feel that was something they needed. And I know how it ripped my heart out having to sit on that phone, And there was a time, one of the times there that I feel bad because I felt like I turned my back. In my heart, I felt like I did. I didn't. But, she chose him, and the way I looked at it, she chose him over her kids with what had separated everybody and put them both where they was. And, he'd still come and see her, and they made contact. So the way I looked at it is, you got him, you don't need me. I got 3 kids to take care of, y'all do your thing. And, when I look back now, I regret not being there at every visit that I had a chance. The next time I didn't miss those visits,
And that's like with the whole kid thing. Like I had mentioned how my daughter was going to counseling, like Mama said, stuff's happened, and, but, she literally was determined that she would never, ever talk to me again. She would never trust me, this and that. And today, I can't even go to the bathroom by myself that she's not literally in there with me or texting me while I'm in the bathroom. It's just proof that who we are in addiction isn't who we really are.
That's what I had to constantly tell myself. That's not my child. It's,
Do you ever still feel like you will have to walk on eggshells? Like in fear, do you still have fear and feel like...
Fear of her going off if I say the wrong thing?
Right.
Or fear of the
Or
words again?
fear of anything. What are you fearful of and what are you?
Not as much as it was. You don't have the fear of taking the kids and leaving them somewhere now, But like she said, when she's ready for her kids, she knows what she has to do, and they're fine. They visit. We don't keep them from them. Never kept them from them. We might have kept a little bit of a, rein on that said, no, you're not going to take them there. Because if I didn't feel like it was a safe place and they needed to be, and I still get nervous about that. Yeah, when they'll go somewhere, I feel like I want to know where for their sake, because they have seen it all. As far as eggshell, being able to talk to her, no, that's not as bad as it was. And it really didn't stop me as much, some of the things I was saying.
Do you think that's one of the warning signs? When somebody in recovery welcomes the accountability? Do you think that if they're being defensive and constantly being...
Yeah, we laugh about that because there's times, the first one was something was said at the table one time and I made a comment, I said, well, I feel like I need to pick his phone up and call him and let her know what he's doing. And he was quick to jump my case and say, you need to get on your side of the road. You ain't got to stay on your side of the street or whatever it was. She said, you don't have anything to do with that now. on the phone and got to him before I could, you know, and you can say things to her, and it's not the same, you know. Wow, that's different, you know. You see a change.
I feel like I'm grilling you guys. I said, I feel like I'm grilling you. No, does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, good question. What made you take that walk on that side, you know what I mean? How does a person go from middle class America and just take that walk off the cliff, you know, like the hard stuff? I mean, I grew up in the 80s, you know, marijuana, the Quaalude, stuff like that. I was talking to Gerald back here, and all of a sudden, you know, I mean, I saw people that took a walk on that hard side, but I know it's not about socioeconomic class, it's like the rich and the poor, but what made you, was there a certain event in your life, like a divorce, a traumatic situation, abuse as a child? What makes you take that walk to the right, to the left? What made you fall off the deep end?
I was trying to find something that would take me out of myself. I felt like that I didn't fit in. Like I talked about, and I'm not blaming my dad because it's nobody's fault but my own, but like my dad always coached sports and stuff here, and you know, when we were in school and stuff, I got 2 left feet. I couldn't play ball, I couldn't do none of that stuff. I tried. And it was like, all his attention went to my brother that played sports. All his attention went to the other people that played sports. And like, I literally, like, I've always had this fear of not thinking that I have to have a man there. And like, I've been to counseling, I've done this and that. And it's like, I had this void in my life that I had to fill. And instead of filling it with what I needed to fill it with, I filled it with drugs because it took me out of who I was and it made me feel like I could be anybody I wanted.
What caused you to want to go back the other way?
I only had one other option, and it was death. I couldn't get any further. I mean, everything I had was gone. My kids, my family. I mean, granted, my family was there, but I had nothing else to lose except for my own life.
What did you find that filled the void?
God. Which, I mean, like she said, I've been raised in a, a Christian home. I've always went to church and knew what it was. And I don't know, I don't really know, but I know that if it wasn't for God, for Brighton, for AA, the girls, and my family, I wouldn't have got the chance I got. That's why, like, you hear me say all the time, don't judge people. That drives me crazy, and I even got my mother for it. I don't know, if somebody would have looked at me and been like, she's a drug addict, she's a thief, she doesn't deserve a second chance, where would I be? I mean, I would not change the scars, I would not change my past, I would not change nothing that I've done. I mean, I would change what happened to my kids. But I would not change anything that I've been through, anything that I've walked through. I wouldn't change none of it because it's made me who I am today, and I wouldn't trade that for nothing.
Being raised in the home that you were raised in, before you started all this, would you have said you were a Christian?
Would I said I was?
Before all this happened, before you started the drugs, would you
No.
have still said that you were a Christian?
I mean, I would have said that, I believed in God and
Right.
stuff.
Going through
But-
emotions.
Yeah.
What now, on a personal level and spiritual level is different? What do you do now that you've seen what he's capable of doing from what you did before?
I suit up, show up, and let him do what he's got to do with me. I mean, I can't do it on. I have to let him. Like she said, it's God's time, God's will, not mine. Stacey can't do this. I tried. All I do is make messes. I mean, at Brighton, I started hitting my knees before I went to bed, and hitting my knees every morning. And like, if I don't do that, I can tell, like, poor Trish has to sit beside me every day at work, and she'll look at me like, can you go pray? Can you? It's like, yeah, I mean, when you learn to depend on God and turn everything over, and I'm not no Bible thumper, and I don't do all that, but I know that without Him, I'm not gonna make it out here.
So now it's a personal thing. It's not just going through the motions anymore.
Yeah, it's personal. This is my wife, it's not Candy anymore.
And nothing moms and dads and friends or anybody else can do too. I mean, you know, I know if grounded or locked her in a room or any of that, I'd have locked her wherever I'd had to. I still like to sometimes, just to think, I don't want you back out there and it ever happened again, you know.
Is there a possibility that you could relapse now?
Yeah. I mean, it can happen any day. I mean, it's literally, you take this one day at a time. I mean, all I have to do is put that first one in me and I'm done.
Anybody else have any questions?
The very moment that you threw your hands up and gave everything to God and said, all right, you know, I'm done doing it Stacey's way, or I'm done doing it, you know, the way my mom wants me to do it, did you immediately start feeling some churn on the inside?
I was sitting in SOS when that happened. Like when I tell my lead, usually I bring that up, but like I said before, when I got to Brighton, I was there, I was going to do my time I had to do, and I was going home and it was done. But don't get me wrong, when I walked in those doors, I was broken and I was sick and tired of being and doing what I was doing. But when I was sitting in SOS one day, and a good friend of mine was my big sister, and she, like, had it in my head, I was sneaking out, and as soon as everybody went to sleep, I was sleeping. Jail was better than this was horrible. And they showed me in happy hour that day how much easier life could be if I just let go and let God. And that right there, I knew I wanted what they had. And I was willing to fight as hard for my recovery as I fought for my drugs on the street.